Well, folks, here we again for the weekly forecast. During this last week, we only had one major precipitation event, and it primarily impacted most of northeastern Nebraska, with up to a half an inch, pretty common across extreme northeastern Nebraska. The heavier precipitation fell across northern Iowa. That was during the midweek period. But outside of that, pretty much warm and dry conditions have been the rule, and that's not unheard of at this time of the year, especially when you have a building La Nina event in the equatorial Pacific. The tendency is for the western Corn Belt to see a drier pattern during the fall harvest. That's exactly what we're seeing. The question is, how strong will this event be? And as we go to the upper, or go to the surface temperatures maps of the Pacific, we'll notice that below normal sea surface temperatures are starting to expand. We're starting to see some of that upwelling with the water that's about 200 to 300 meters deep of below normal sea surface temperatures starting to make its way up into the eastern Pacific. So we're starting to see this region starting to go toward below normal sea surface temperatures. And to the north, here's your main storm track recently, with the storms coming into California and the Pacific Northwest, starting to churn the water up. So we're starting to see this region go to below normal sea surface temperatures. This all is starting to match up with what we would typically expect with a La Nina. So if that is going to be the case, we would expect stormy conditions to continue into the western United States. And indeed, we do have a trough currently in place in the western United States. Most of the energy shifting toward the northeast and being stripped by the mountains, so any of the moisture that does come over the east side of the mountains is not really laying out anything at the surface. And we'll see that trough tries to make its way a little bit farther eastward. The ridge starts to push toward the east, brings a lot warmer temperatures into our region. That energy starts to shift out as we go into the Monday time frame, but nothing in the way of any significant moisture, just not enough time for the moisture from the Gulf to get to the surface. And then we start to see that energy moving over to the Great Lakes. So benign conditions once again, but this another system that breaks off from this trough starts to make its way out during the midweek period, and that is expected to move toward the northeast. And this is the one that may bring a little bit of precipitation to western and central Nebraska, leaving eastern Nebraska at this point in time high and dry. And then we start to see more of a zonal flow as we get to the end of the week. In terms of how the precipitation will shunt out, notice the precipitation mainly concentrated in the western United States and some into the northeastern United States. So here's your heavy precipitation this weekend starting to make its way inward. That first wave moves out, brings that moisture to the northern plains, missing Nebraska. And as we get into Tuesday, we see benign conditions, but on Wednesday we start to see the signs of this system that's going to bring moisture up toward the north, starting to target the western and central portions of Nebraska, and then that clears out of the region as we get into Friday, and once again we look at a dry pattern reestablishing itself. Now in terms of the 8 to 14 day forecast, it takes us from next Thursday through the following Tuesday. We're looking at widespread above normal temperatures, although I believe that the western United States is probably going to be closer to normal to slightly below normal, with yet another system coming on board. In terms of precipitation, you can see the impacts that system is expected to generate itself out of the southwest next Wednesday, Thursday. It's capturing some of this moisture, and then we're seeing another wave that may potentially come in the Monday, Tuesday time frame, but overall a very dry pattern for most of the eastern United States.